And the other unique feature about this that the audience will not, maybe not, doesn't know, is the fact that the most important organelle in life, the mitochondria, and the other most important components in health that we're learning about now, the microbiome, both of those are only inherited from our mothers, not our fathers. So what happens is, what separates everything inside your gut from your bloodstream is one cell. When that loses blood, and we've measured this, those cells open up and you get an increase in the permeability of the epithelium of the gut. So you're going to get a translocation of compounds going inside the blood. These compounds, called DAMPs and PAMPs, are very similar to free radicals. And what they do is they go inside the mitochondria, they start eating up your lemons. So now instead of having 100 lemons, you will have 50 lemons. What's going to happen to the mitochondria when it's lost 50% of its lemons, of its antioxidant capacity?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Healthy Habit Podcast, episode number 107 here, and I'm your host, Dr. Dayan of Healthy Habit Medical Center here in Central Phoenix, Arizona. Thanks for tuning in today. If you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Give us a little like, maybe share a little thanks for posting this comment down below. We can talk more in the comments. Today on episode number 107, we're talking with Dr. Gaetano Morello, naturopathic physician and published author. Recently, he's been appointed as a clinician at the newly created Complex Chronic Disease Program located at British Columbia Women's Hospital in Vancouver. He's the first naturopathic doctor to hold such a position at a major North American hospital. You can review his complete CV bio at Gaetano, let's see here, let me make sure, naturopathicmedicinecenter.ca. I'll link that down below. Again, that's naturopathicmedicinecenter.ca over in Canada. Dr. Gaetano, thank you for coming on the program.
Well, nice to be with you. Let me make just a one correction. So it's not the newly appointed. So we've had I've been working there for 10 years now. Good. So it's a lot longer. So just for the audience to know, and I'm glad it's episode 107.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know this, but 8 is my lucky number. So I was born in 1961, which is an 8. I am 62 years old, which is an 8.
Wow.
This is 2024, which is an 8.
Wow,
and
that's
this
unreal.
is episode 107, which is an 8.
That's wild. That's a really good observation. Yeah. That's amazing. So thanks for this. Is our first time talking. We were just established that before we went on here today, folks. So get your pens and papers ready. Dr. Gaetano, he has had a lot of experience here. He graduated in 1991 from Bastyr University here to become a naturopathic physician. So today we're going to highlight mitochondrial health. We'll dive into some options here through natural factors, what products we can plug in to this goal of supporting mitochondrial health. So let me first back up a little bit here, Dr. Morello. Why are the mitochondria so important for human health?
Well, if you look at the most important element in life, and we say, well, food and water. Well, not really, because I can go without food for a while. We can both go without water for a while. We haven't eaten or drank anything since we've been speaking. But the one thing we've been doing is breathing. And so what is the most important element in life is air, is oxygen. And so when we look at the consequential side effects of lacking oxygen, an example that we can all relate to in one way or another is people we may have known that have had a stroke victims. So what's a stroke victim? A lack of blood flow to a particular area of the brain. In other words, a lack of oxygen going to that particular area of the brain. And what occurs when that particular area of the brain doesn't get oxygen? We call this a stroke. The person become paralyzed. The person can lose the ability to talk, walk. And that person can even die. So that begs the question, what is oxygen doing that's so critically important to life? And all it does, it enters a cell. Inside the cell, it goes to these little organelles called mitochondria. It goes through a series of steps in the mitochondria to produce the body's electricity. We call it ATP. That's all oxygen does. Cyanide, which kills us instantly, blocks oxygen from doing that in the mitochondria. So the mitochondria become the critical component of life
Hmm.
because if oxygen doesn't go through them, we can die. So they are the energy producing factories, allows everything in our bodies to function.
Incredible breakdown. Very important. Yeah, they're like these little factories that are making ATP all day, right? So every
And
time we breathe air in, every time that inhale, that's fueling the mitochondria directly, correct? That oxygen.
that's fueling the mitochondria. So if you think of every single cell in your body, your muscle cells, your glial cells, whatever cell it is, as factories producing something. And those factories all need electricity. They all need energy. And if you compromise that energy in any way, those factories can't function optimally. So you can imagine all the consequences. This is what I do at the hospital. So for the last 10 years, I treat complex chronic diseases. It's a government funded program at BC Women's Hospital, one of the largest hospitals in the country. And all we treat is fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, allergic encephalomyelitis, long COVID, and chronic Lyme and multiple sclerosis, which are all mitochondrial based diseases. And
No.
now what we're learning is that almost every condition is mitochondrial based. And
Hmm.
so this is going to become a very important topic moving forward, and understanding how they work and what we can do to change their ability to produce energy becomes a critical part of medicine.
So will you have a different number of mitochondria from one cell type to another, let's say the heart cell compared to someone's muscle, calf muscle, bicep muscle compared to the heart muscle? Is there different types or amounts of mitochondria in different cells and organs?
Yeah. So, I always tell my patients, remember high school? You saw the cell with two little mitochondria in it. That's all they could put on there. But each cell has, a glial cell in the brain could have 1,500 to 2,000 mitochondria. Heart cells about 2 to 3,000. Here's another one. The female oocyte has over 100,000 mitochondria. You can do this deduction that 25 to 30% of the entire cell volume is mitochondria. And,
Hmm.
one of the things we got to look at is the fact that they're very, very unique structures, in that the audience might not know this, but mitochondria have their own DNA, and it's circular outside of the 23 pairs of chromosomes we have in our nucleus. That's the DNA we're familiar with. But
Yeah.
this is a different DNA, and it's circular to an organelle, which is quite unique. And the other unique feature about this that the audience will not, maybe not, doesn't know, is the fact that the most important organelle in life, the mitochondria, and the other most important components in health that we're learning about now, the microbiome, both of those are only inherited from our mothers, not our fathers, which is it's a distinguishing characteristic, but it's a characteristic that tells us more information and what we're learning is that there's communication between the microbiome and the mitochondria, and that their structures are very similar.
Repeat that one again. What's inherited only from the mother? The mitochondrial DNA, or
No,
repeat
no,
that
the
one.
mitochondria is only
Period.
inherited from the mother, the whole mitochondria. And your microbiome is also inherited from your mother,
Okay.
not your father. So the mitochondria, the organelle, is inherited from your mother only. That's
Fascinating.
quite that's quite fascinating in itself.
And then how does that help you clinically or with
Well, what
products,
it does,
supplements?
well, it does this couple of things. What it gives us clues into is what is happening. Is there communication, since they're inherited from only the mother for whatever reason? Is there a communication or a relationship between the microbiome and the mitochondria? Because because the microbiome is bacteria. And what do we know about the mitochondria? They have a bacterial origin. They look bacterial. They have very similar components. Therefore, is there communication? And since the mitochondria are the critical organelles that allow everything to function in our bodies. Without them, nothing would work. Is a offset in the microbiome going to create an offset in mitochondrial energy
No,
production?
I see.
And I can show you evidence that's pointing towards
That it
that from my
does.
scientific research perspective, especially when it comes to complex chronic diseases.
Fascinating. Incredible. We can spend like a whole 2 hours here discussing breaking this topic down. That's why I
I
want to
could
have you on
spend
again, Dr. Morello.
I could spend 20 hours, 30
Yeah,
hours,
yeah,
40 hours,
exactly.
50
10 years.
hours.
You've been doing 10 years on it. You spent 10 years on it.
32 years of medicine and 10 years of mitochondria.
Okay, so what changes as we get older, as people age, geriatric population or 70 plus? What happens to those mitochondria compared to when we're younger? How can you influence that?
Okay, so what's happening is a couple of things. Um, First of all, what the mitochondria, if anybody's familiar with a hydrodam, it's an electric, that's how you produce electricity, one of the ways. So a hydrodam, that's what a mitochondria is, a hydrodam. And the oxygen is the water. The water falls down the hydrodam, turns the turbines, and produces electricity. That's exactly what goes on in the mitochondria. So what happens as we get older is one, there is less mitochondria because mitochondria reproduce themselves. Remember, they have their own DNA.
Yeah,
So they reproduce themselves. So as you get older, as the energy production in these organelles decreases, the cell doesn't replicate as it normally would because there's not enough energy. There's less of them, and then there's the redox issue. So there's two ways. So I've created methodologies on treating mitochondrial dysfunction from the information we know thus far. And the microbiome will be a different discussion point where we've actually been able to reverse a whole bunch of conditions just by changing the microbiome. But that's another discussion. But so here's the two things. One is called upregulation, and two is called redox. So to talk about upregulation, what's upregulation? Well, if I don't eat for 2 to 3 days, I'm going to feel fatigued. I'm going to feel tired. I am not going to be functional because the mitochondria not only need oxygen, they also
right.
need macro and micronutrients. There's a whole bunch of them that they need.
Sure.
And so one of the ways of improving them is to ensure that they're getting those macro and micronutrients. So my patients, complex disease patients, patients of chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, I mean, I bet you lots of your audience relates to this. They have fatigue, chronic fatigue. They have post-exertion malaise. In other words, if they exert themselves, it could take them a while to recover from that exertion. They have IBS symptoms, bloating, gas, and that's another topic in itself, and constipation, diarrhea. They have cognitive dysfunction in the form of brain fog and memory loss. And they have what we call unrefreshing sleep. They can be in bed for 8 hours and they feel like they haven't slept at all. So those are the symptoms. And that's all mitochondria. So what we want to do is the first part is upregulation. So we want to give compounds that can upregulate the mitochondria. One of the compounds, the low-lying fruit, very simple, and everybody just gets surprised. Really, really? And this is a hit. And what I mean by a hit is if I give it to 10 patients, 8 patients are going to get a positive result with it. And that's 25 grams of protein in the morning. What a simple thing. I mean, how simple can it be? 25 grams of protein,
Yeah.
that's it. Well, think about this. All your DNA makes is protein, doesn't make anything else. So you need that compound. So I've given that to 13,645 patients. And out of those patients, 80% have had a positive outcome. The second product that I give for this upregulation is magnesium, 300 milligrams in the morning, 300 milligrams in the night. And everybody will ask me, well, which one? Which magnesium? Magnesium is magnesium. They just have different carriers. So they have, citrate as a carrier, bisglycinate as a carrier,
No, yeah.
threonate as a carrier, malate. They're just carriers. So start with something that's inexpensive like the citrate. And then if you have gastrointestinal issues because of it, and sometimes you don't, they move on to a bisglycinate. So that's how you play with that magnesium game. Then the other compound that you want, which is a hit and miss, is something called ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the active form of something called ubiquinone, which is coenzyme Q10. And if you look at the turbines in the mitochondria, there's 5 turbines.
Yeah.
2 of the turbines will require ubiquinol. So you want to take ubiquinol, you want to do about 300 milligrams of that in the morning. And then the other one in this place is something called acetyl L-carnitine. And what that is a carrier that carries essential fats into the mitochondria for energy production.
Right.
And you want to do like 1,500 milligrams of that a day. And so everybody asks me, what do you mean by that? This is what I mean by that. A duck can travel 1,000 miles without ever landing. How does it do that? It uses its fat as energy. That's why a duck is fatty. That's the way it uses it. And then the last thing is a B complex, a B vitamin that we add. Now that's upregulation. A more important component of all this is something called redox. And to understand redox, you have to understand what that looks like. And what it looks like is this. This is a simple example that your audience will familiarize themselves, will know about, is when you slice an apple, the apple oxidizes. It goes brown. It rusts because it's reacting with the oxygen. There's the oxygen double-sided sword. So how do you stop an apple from browning? I bet you most people know that. You squeeze lemon juice on it. And what does the lemon juice do? It acts as an anti-rust agent, more familiarly called an antioxidant.
Yeah.
Or more importantly called, because what it's doing, it's an electron donor. It gives electrons. That's all an antioxidant does. Vitamin C, vitamin E, pycnogenol, NAC, glutathione, those are all electron donors. So that's important to remember. Now here's my explanation. So this is my caveat. So it's something that I've created. So you're not going to find this in books. So you'll never find this in books. This is my kind of thing because books can't write this, right? Because it's not accurate.
This is your experience.
And it's the only way I can describe it so the audience can understand it. And so we can all understand what's happening. So the mitochondria, here's my caveat. The mitochondria can never, under any circumstances, rust. If it rusts, it dies. If it dies, we die. So that's my caveat. You can't find that in books because you can't write about it because it's not true, because it does rust to some degree. But
I see.
We are going to go with that conclusion. It can't rust. So why does it not rust? It's got lots of oxygen going through it. Why does it rust? Because it has its own lemons. The lemons it has are called glutathione and SOD, superoxide dismutase. Now, instead of remembering those complicated names, I'm going to give you another thing to remember. Here it is. The mitochondria produces 100 lemons per day. Each mitochondria produces 100 lemons a day.
Wow.
That's why it doesn't rust. So your glial cell with 1,000 mitochondria is going to have 100,000 lemons. Okay, now, here it is. This is what happens. Because of sympathetic tone, which is stress. So the stress response, what does the stress response do? It shuts blood going to the gut. When the zebra confronts the lion, the zebra is going to run away from the lion. And so what does it need? It needs blood in its peripheral tissues, its legs to run. Where's it going to get its extra blood? From the core. So what happens is, what separates everything inside your gut from your bloodstream is one cell. When that loses blood, and we've measured this, those cells open up and you get an increase in the permeability of the epithelium of the gut. So you're going to get a translocation of compounds going inside the blood. These compounds, called DAMPs and PAMPs, are very similar to free radicals. And what they do is they go inside the mitochondria, they start eating up your lemons. So now instead of having 100 lemons, you will have 50 lemons. What's going to happen to the mitochondria when it's lost 50% of its lemons, of its antioxidant capacity? Well, you're going to say it's going to rust. But what did I tell you? It cannot, under any circumstances, rust. If it rusts, it dies. If it dies, we die. So how is it going to adapt to that new reality?
No.
It's going to reduce the uptake of oxygen by 50% and reduce the output of energy by 50%. So you've lost 50% of your energy capacity, which then all of a sudden creates an incredible amount of deficit, which creates an incredible amount of inability of that mitochondria to give energy to the cell for the cell to do its functions.
There you go.
Your neurotransmitter production goes down. Your immune system goes down. Everything starts. You see? So those are the two areas of focus when it comes to mitochondrial treatment.
And now my original question, that was a great answer. How do the mitochondria change as we get older? How can we improve this process? Both of those were clearly answered there. And basically to make up for that deficit, the ATP starts being produced less energy, so the body starts shutting down over time as we age, right? That's when the skin starts deteriorating, the heart doesn't pump as well, all right?
All those things will start occurring. And so this is why, if you look at, there was a great, one of the videos I did was a great video where we took identical twins. One twin smoked, the other one didn't. So we had perfect facial features of these identical twins. The difference is remarkable, incredible. What was the difference? The difference was the ability to oxygenate those mitochondria. So there was interference and the free radicals that started knocking off the lemons. So right. Aging is all about, making sure that you have plenty of electrons in the human body to be able to counteract the effect that stress has. So those 13,000 patients I've interviewed, every single one of them, not one, every single one of them. My number one question, what makes your symptomology worse? Right across the board, number one, stress, sympathetic tone. Why? Because you're going to get leakiness, you can get translocation of compounds into the bloodstream from the gut, which creates this issue within the mitochondrial cells. So if we reverse that, we can reverse everything.
And we'll see if we can get you on another 2-3 weeks when we have Natural Factors back on for our monthly check-in with Natural Factors to even dive deeper into now products that we can plug in. You did highlight the protein at 25 grams in the morning. You mentioned ubiquinol and even the magnesium.
Yeah.
So I want to
one of the things that I Factors is right here in Vancouver. So I've shared with them so much because they're such a great company. And they've produced this whole line called the Regenerlife line that's based on those principles that I use at the hospital and I treated my patients with. So that's a really good line that I put many professional athletes on because it really does work. So because this methodology can change the way you feel. So this is what we all got to work on. I mean, so you want to maintain a level of energy. There it is. There you go. You want to maintain a level of energy. You want to reduce the aging process. And I'm not saying we're all going to get older, but there's different ways of getting old. We want to get older with functionality. We want to get older with our skin intact. We want to get older with joints that work normally. And and I have followed these protocols for many, many years myself. So
I've gone through about 2 bottles of this right here, the Regenerlife.
Okay.
And maybe we can just finish on this note because this has several of the things that you mentioned here in this last 25 minutes, like glutathione and the CoQ10, which is ubiquinol that you said. And then there's that acetyl L-carnitine. So why this specific lineup here of ingredients? And then we'll finish on that note, Dr. Morello.
Yeah, because those ingredients are the ones that not only are the upregulators, but also the lemon givers, right? Because we got to give lemons. Missing lemons. So we have to throw some lemons in there,
right?
So that's what we're trying to do. So that's where this kind of idea spawned from. The fact that and I think this is going to be the play in cancer research. It has become. It's going to be the play in everything that we do is maintaining mitochondrial optimization. So it's a really exciting field to be part of right now.
And again, that's the Regenerlife formula here, nutritional compounds to optimize mitochondrial function here in episode number 107 here with Dr. Gaetano Morello out of Canada. By the way, I'm from Canada too, Doc. I don't know if you know, I'm from Windsor, Ontario originally.
Windsor.
I'm a Canadian.
You're Canadian down where, and you're based out of Arizona?
Phoenix, Arizona, yeah.
It's a great place. I mean, look at that mountain in the back. Wow.
Yeah, right. And then, folks, you can head over to naturalfactors.com and then head over to Regenerlife powder. Plus, they have the magnesiums we were discussing here a moment ago, and we can save that for the next time we have Dr. Morello on. What's a good take-home, then, about last minute and a half here? People are listening to us as they shop in the store, Dr. Morello. That's what's unique about this podcast. Our clinic's located inside of a health food store, so we share space together. We record the podcast, and then we play it in the store as customers are shopping. So what do you want them to know here when it comes to aging and the mitochondria? What's a good summary here?
Well, the summary is to, to take care of those items, and that, everybody knows that stress causes all sorts of damage. I mean, we blame stress for everything. Well, now you know why,
Yeah.
because it creates this imbalance within the mitochondria. And we're also learning that the mitochondria is very associated with a lot of chronic diseases that we're seeing in our culture, and that doing these simple steps can help support the mitochondria. The 25 grams of protein in the morning, the Regenerlife formulation that has all those different compounds that we talked about, those are going to support the mitochondria. It's going to improve your energy levels. And energy is not only energy in us moving or doing things, it's also energy required for our brains to function normally, energy required for our hearts to contract normally, energy required for us to, because we're always getting replicated. Every single cell of our body is getting remade continuously, and it needs this energy. So the take home message is you really take care of your mitochondria. It's something that we've never thought about before, but this is really the essence of life is these mitochondria. So we need to support them. And we haven't done that in the past, but now we are going to start doing that now. So that's the take home message.
Especially with more and more research is coming out that's truly, because you and I were both naturopathic doctors, NDs. We want to get to that root issue in chronic diseases, and you even highlighted complex chronic diseases today, and that getting to that mitochondria and the gut health is really getting to the root cause, right, of health problems.
100%.
Well, thank you for coming on today, Dr. Morello. I appreciate
Okay,
you and the
great.
whole team there at Natural Factors,
All
and
right.
we'll try to get you back on again. We got to dive even deeper here. This was a good warm-up, right?
Yeah, it's a warm up.
Thanks
All
for your
right.
time.
No worries. My pleasure. Take care.